Union man said that we can't have a nation to hold. Union man said that we can't have our own pot of gold. Union man said that you'll starve if you're old. Union man said we can't have a nation to hold. Union man said you be out in the cold and the dark. Union man said that your land has no heart. Union man said that it's all in the past. Union man, step aside, you had your chance. So watch us rise into the sky. See the passion for freedom in our eyes. We were lost in the lies. Scotland calls, so watch us rise. Labour and Tory men tell us that we are too weak. As they celebrate victory won by the man on TV. Too many questions and too many answers, you see. Cheap points for your stories and lies by the BBC. I can see the road ahead, we're so close. We've traveled so far, this time everyone knows. We must say thanks to the ones who fought for this land. Freedom for me and you and Alex the man. So watch us rise into the sky. See the passion for freedom in our eyes. We were lost in the lies. Scotland calls, so watch us rise. Stand in the square, show us you care, fly your flags. And if you're a no voter, join us, you won't be the last. Forget the old days, we won't bow down to the man. Scotland's nation will rise by the work of our hands. Scotland's nation will rise by the work of our hands. So watch us rise into the sky. See the passion for freedom in our eyes. We were lost in the lies. Scotland calls, so watch us rise. Oh, Scotland calls, so watch us rise.
Good afternoon, Aberdeen. Welcome to the last of Nicola Sturgeon's Sellout Tours of Scotland. My name's John Nicholson, and I'll be chairing this afternoon's event. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a referendum recently. It was about something to do with Scotland and independence. Did anybody vote?
Yes.
Anybody vote yes?
Yes.
Well, I don't know about you, but I think since the referendum there's been a palpable sense of excitement in the air. The SNP is now more than 90,000 members. And the party's aiming for 100,000 by election day for Westminster next year. Now, if the polls are correct, many of the people who voted no are sorry that they did so and wish that they joined the 1.6 million of us who voted yes to independence. It's quite a figure when you think about it, 1.6 million people. Now, a line that we often heard before the referendum from opponents of independence was that there was no demand for a referendum. But with more than 90% turnout in some areas, I think we laid that myth to rest. Don't you? Another myth you often hear is about politicians, that voters are cynical about them, that they're all the same. But I don't think anyone can say that about this afternoon's speaker, Nicola Sturgeon. When her tour of Scotland was announced, more than 18,000 people snapped up tickets to hear her speak in Edinburgh, Dumfries, Perth, Dundee, Glasgow, Inverness, and here in Scotland's most beautiful city, Aberdeen. Now, 12,000 of those seats were for the Glasgow Hydro alone. Did any of you see the Glasgow Hydro event? I thought so. Extraordinary. Well, when Nicola's tickets for the Hydro went within 24 hours of going online, she joined a pantheon of headline sellout acts there, including those other great political heroes, Kylie, Beyonce and Lady Gaga. Now, Nicola says that she wants to be the most accessible First Minister ever. And after she speaks tonight, this afternoon, you'll get your chance to ask her any questions that you might like. And I'll be chairing that, so have a think about it, question time style. This is not an offer you ever get from Beyonce, and Nicola will answer any questions that you have. But without further ado, let's call her onto the stage. Please welcome the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon.
It must be Aberdeen, they're heckling before I start to speak. It is an absolute pleasure to be here in Aberdeen this afternoon. You know, I've been making very clear over the past few weeks that I am determined to lead a government for all of Scotland. So I'm delighted to be making this my first visit to the northeast of Scotland just 2 weeks after becoming First Minister. As our energy capital, Aberdeen is an absolutely vital part of Scotland's economy. I want to see this city and the North East strive, and I can assure you that the policies of my government will continue to provide as much support for that as possible. Improving infrastructure is a big part of that, and that's why I'm very pleased to be able to say that this year's budget contained further funding for the Aberdeen Western Peripheral Route. We're also helping businesses here in Aberdeen to thrive. Since 2008, small businesses in Aberdeen have received more than £25 million of support from our small business bonus scheme. And we're doing everything we can to ease pressure on household budgets as well. By 2016, the average Bandee house in Aberdeen is going to be around £1,800 better off as a direct result of the council tax freeze. Now that is in stark contrast, is it not, to the days when Labour were in power and council tax increased by 73%. And through our social wage with the people of Scotland, families right across the North East are benefiting from free prescriptions, free school meals, our commitment to the living wage and the expansion of free childcare for all 3- and 4-year-olds and all vulnerable 2-year-olds. So I want to make clear today, at the very outset of my speech to you, that this important investment in the future of the North East of Scotland and in the future of every single person who lives here will continue for as long as I am First Minister of Scotland. Want to extend the warmest of welcomes to each and every one of you here today. I know some of you have hot-footed it from another event somewhere else in the North East of Scotland. I want to welcome in particular all of you who have just joined the SNP. Welcome to our family. You will be to all of you who have been members of the SNP for many years, a heartfelt thank you from me to you for all the work, commitment, effort and dedication that you have given to our party, our cause and our country over all of these years. And to those of you here, and I hope there are plenty of you who are not yet members, maybe you're not even yet supporters of the SNP, people who've come along with friends or with family to hear what I've got to say, you're very welcome too. I hope you like what you hear today, and if you do, I can assure you that there are people here who will be very, very happy to sign you up to membership of the SNP before you head home this afternoon. Of course, today's not just about me coming here to talk to you, it's also about you getting the chance to ask me questions. And you will be getting an awful lot more of that from me as First Minister. As John just said there, I intend to be the most accessible First Minister our country has ever had, holding regular town hall meetings, question and answer sessions, taking the Cabinet out of Edinburgh, not just every summer, but every couple of months. I've already done my first Facebook question and answer session, and last week I did my first YouTube question and answer. I didn't know until a few weeks ago that you could do YouTube question and answers, but there you go. But the reason I'm mentioning these things is to make this point. Around 340,000 people engaged with these two events alone, with the Facebook Q&A and the YouTube question and answer. So we can use modern technology and social media to reach people that we would never ever have been able to reach before. That's wonderful. Now, of course, that kind of direct engagement might not always be comfortable, but it is exactly as it should be in a modern, healthy democracy, and I can tell you this, it's how it's always going to be for the party and the government that I lead. This afternoon, what I want to do is reflect a little bit on the referendum, but more importantly than that, I want to look forward, to look to the future, to the even better times that lie ahead for our party and for our country. There can be few leaders anywhere or any time in a democracy who have inherited a party in better shape than the one that I inherited a few weeks ago. And for that, I owe the most enormous debt of gratitude to one person above all others. I owe an enormous debt of gratitude to the one and only Alex Salmond. How the Westminster establishment must be shaken in its shoes. Has gone out loudly and clearly from the North East of Scotland today. Alex on his way back to Westminster to shake them up and hold them to account. in no small measure to Alec that I lead a party that is, by far, by some considerable distance, by a country mile, the biggest political party in Scotland. The third biggest political party in the whole of the United Kingdom. A party that is currently leading in the polls for both the Scottish and the Westminster elections, a party united, focused and with the interests of the country at our heart. What a contrast with Scottish Labour. You know, I suspect even... She's at it again. I suspect even calling Labour that these days, even calling them Scottish Labour, is a breach of the Trades Descriptions Act. They are, after all, a party described by their own former leader as nothing more than a branch office. And what seems to be their answer to this? They're going to draft in a Westminster MP to lead them. You really couldn't make this up. You know, during the referendum campaign, I appealed to Labour supporters to vote yes to win independence for Scotland, but also in the process to reclaim their party. And many, many Labour supporters heeded that call. Glasgow, North Lanarkshire, Dundee, Western Bartonshire all voted yes, and many other traditional Labour voting areas came very, very close. They voted yes for a better country, while the party they have supported through thick and thin stood with the Tories to keep things just as they are. For too long now, for far, far too long now, Labour has put position, prestige and Westminster vested interest over the best interests of the people of Scotland. Friends, I think that the days of Labour holding Scotland back really must now be brought to an end. It's hard to believe this now, but once upon a time Labour was the party of progress in Scotland. But today Labour just stands in the way of progress. So today I make this appeal to every Labour supporter who voted yes for a better country, and also to those who voted no on members than the entire Scottish Labour Party. We are, without doubt, Scotland's party of social democracy. We are the party of aspiration and opportunity. We're the party that knows that a strong economy and a fair society must go hand in hand if everyone in our country is to get a decent chance in life. And crucially, we are the party with the freedom of thought and the freedom of action to fashion a policy programme to support that vision. Which makes it all the more remarkable, does it not, that any broadcaster would even think for a single second about excluding us from the general election television debates. So let me take this opportunity today to say very directly to all of our broadcasters to exclude not just the SNP, but also the Greens and Plaid Cymru, incidentally the only three parties in the entire UK led by women. To exclude these parties would be to willfully ignore the reality of the political landscape that exists not just in Scotland but across these islands, and it would be a failure, an abject failure in your duty of impartiality. It is time to think again, because be in no doubt whatsoever, in the general election the SNP will be seen and Scotland's voice will be heard. Some of our political opponents say that the big surge, the massive tens of thousands surge in our membership. Bring that advert to mind. Well, the reason is actually a serious one, and it's this. Thanks to you, and thanks to tens of thousands like you, it's no longer possible for anybody to write off Scotland's party of government as just that guy off the telly, or even this girl off the telly. We're not some distant, remote bunch of politicians. We are part of every community in our land. In Scotland today, if
If you're not a member of the SNP yourself, it's highly likely that you know somebody who is. Somebody you like, trust, listen to, a friend, the parent of your kid's friend, a member of your family, a workmate, somebody you play football with. That's what it means to be a mass membership movement. You touch every part of Scottish society and reflect Scotland in all of its wonderful diversity. And when we combine that incredible human network with modern 21st century social media campaigning, what we have is a reach, an ability to connect and to communicate that is unparalleled, not just in Scotland but anywhere in the UK. That is our opportunity, and friends, we must grasp it with both hands. But you know, that connectedness of party and public that's such a big opportunity also brings with it a big, big responsibility. A responsibility on all of us to act and to behave at all times with dignity and respect and in accordance with the high standards that the public rightly expects of us. On any occasion that we fall below these standards, we let the public down, but we also let ourselves down, because the only cause we damage is our own. So let us resolve to live up at all times to the standards of debate and democratic engagement that the referendum campaign inspired. I want today to ask each and every one of you to think about what you can do over these next few months to help the SNP win votes and win seats at the general election. Because you know this, if we all work together, if we mobilise this massive army of activists, then the SNP, our party, is going to be unstoppable. And when that happens, Scotland will be the winner. Amazing spirit of the referendum campaign we have just lived through. You know, that campaign was the most fulfilling and the best experience of my political life. You know, my abiding memories of the referendum campaign are not of the television debates or the media interviews, enjoyable though they were most of the time. My abiding memories are of the packed public meetings in every single corner of our country. I even managed to do a public meeting on the overnight ferry from Aberdeen to Shetland, which was an experience. I remain very grateful that the sea was calm that night. But my memories are of the people I met during that campaign. People, yes, I know voters who had never before gone to a political meeting, some who had never even voted before. People realising for the first time that the political system exists to serve them, not the other way round, and being excited by that, inspired, engaged and empowered. I learned so much about their experiences, worries, dreams and ambitions, and I hope and I believe that I am the wiser for that. Because the simple fact is this, the referendum changed this country forever. And the challenge for us as a party, as a movement, is to reflect that change in how we conduct ourselves. We must use our new strength as a party to engage positively, intelligently and respectfully with a population that is more engaged and better informed than it's ever been before. We've got to have the wisdom and the humility to know when to put party interest aside and make common cause for the greater good. We must focus not on what divides us as a nation, but on what unites us. And if we do all of that, I believe we can create a momentum for change in our country that is unstoppable. Of course, where that change leads us won't be dictated by politicians. It will be driven, in the words of the United States Constitution, by we the people. And make no mistake, I know where I want that change to lead. I know where I believe with all of my heart that this change will lead, and that is to Scotland becoming an independent nation. The other political parties are fond of saying that my My continued belief in independence, our continued belief in independence, means that we don't accept the result of the referendum. If I can put this as politely as possible, that's nonsense. And they know it's nonsense. I accept the result unreservedly. Sadly, but unreservedly. Yes didn't win the referendum, and we didn't win because we didn't persuade enough people of the positive case for independence. And whatever frustrations we might feel about the nature of the No campaign, the scaremongering, the negativity, the fact remains that it was our job to convince people to vote yes, no one else's. We came close, we came so very close, but we fell short. And so Scotland won't become independent at this time. That is democracy. I accept that. But I reserve my right to keep making the case, to keep trying to persuade, because you know what? That is democracy too. I believe as strongly as I ever have that we should be independent and that we will be independent, but only the Scottish people can decide that. However much we might like it to be otherwise, there's no shortcut to independence, no back door, no low road, there is only the high road of democracy. So our task now, my friends, is the same as it has always been, to persuade a majority of our fellow citizens in a referendum that independence is the best future for our country. And whether we succeed and when we succeed will depend on many different factors, events and circumstances. And it will depend, as I've said, a lot on how we conduct ourselves. So let me set out for you how I intend to conduct myself as First Minister of our country, and how, as leader of the SNP, I want us as a party to seize the opportunities that lie ahead. Firstly, we must respect the views of those who voted no. We've got to understand their reasons, even if we don't agree with them, and be more persuasive in future. And we mustn't ever allow our disagreement on independence to blind us to the many, many things that we do all agree on. As First Minister, I will work to build as much unity and common cause in our country as I possibly can. For me, one Scotland is not just a slogan, it is a principle that should guide us every day as a nation. There are many people who voted no in September who are open to persuasion in the future. In fact, I know a fair few who have changed their minds already. But I also know that there are those who will never be persuaded of the case for independence. I respect that, and as First Minister, I will serve them too. Our differing views on independence don't mean that there aren't many other aspirations that we share for our country. There are aspirations of a healthy economy, strong public services, and a flourishing democracy. So for each and every day that I hold office as First Minister, I will govern this country to the very best of my ability, and I will do so for all of Scotland. That is, after all, what the SNP was elected to do in 2007 and re-elected to do in 2011. And mark my words today, it is what I intend we will be re-elected to do again in 2016. Scotland a better place for everyone who lives here. That's my guiding principle. The reason I support independence is because I believe that it's better for our children. A fairer, more prosperous society where opportunity matches potential. A strong economy to underpin the better society that we aspire to. A country playing its part in building a more peaceful world. And a country free of the moral and financial obscenity that is trident nuclear weapons. Independence will give us so much more opportunity to deliver these objectives. There is no doubt whatsoever about that. But I'm committed to these objectives in all constitutional circumstances. So I will use every power I have at my disposal at any time to deliver the best outcomes for the people I serve. In doing so, I'm building on solid achievements. You know, thanks in part to the work of the Scottish Government, Scotland now has lower unemployment and higher employment than anywhere else in the UK. We've seen a massive boost in Scottish exports, and in the face of Westminster austerity, our Scottish Welfare Fund has given support to more than 100,000 vulnerable households. And I'm very proud to say that we, the SNP Scottish Government, has taken action to cancel out the impact of the Tory unfair bedroom tax. These are all core areas of our government's work, and they matter, they really, really matter to the livelihoods and the well-being of hundreds of thousands of our fellow citizens. So wherever we progress to as a country in the future, and I believe it will be to independence, I pledge this, the government I lead will have a relentless focus on the job in hand, on our health service and our other public services, on the economy and on tackling inequality. Good government is important for its own sake. But you know, it's also true that good government and progress for Scotland go hand in hand. Everything I have experienced in government since 2007, everything I saw during the referendum campaign persuades me that there is an inextricable link between the extent of the powers we wield in the Scottish Parliament and how well we use those powers, and people's confidence in our abilities to succeed as an independent country. We could never, would never have achieved 1.6 million votes for independence without the solid track record of a successful Scottish Parliament since 1999. So the more responsibilities we can demonstrate Scotland is capable of successfully discharging, and the more these powers are used to build a fairer country and more economic opportunity for all, the less people will heed the naysayers and the scaremongers trying to stop Scotland going any further. That's exactly why we participated in the Smith Commission in a spirit of good faith. We wanted to play our part in making that a success, and we welcome the recommendations it has made. We will use any new powers that come to the Scottish Parliament in the best way we can to make life better for the people we serve. But let us be clear, control over just 30% of our tax and just 15% of our social security spending is not the modern form of home rule that was promised. Leaving control of the minimum wage, equality law, tax credits, most of the welfare system, and all of our oil and gas revenues in the hands of Westminster is not taking us as close to federalism as it's possible to get. So yes, we will welcome progress, and we will work with others to deliver that progress. But let me tell you this, and let me leave you in no doubt about it. The party I lead will not reduce its ambition to the lowest common denominator of agreement, no matter how much our opponents might like us to. We will not settle for the bare minimum that the Westminster parties are grudgingly prepared to give us. Our job is not just to argue for a better deal for Scotland. Our job is to argue, to press, to campaign at all times for the best deal for Scotland. Like the STUC, the Scottish Council for Voluntary Organisations, and so many others across Civic Scotland, you think the Smith proposals fall far short, then my message is very, very simple. It was only the power of your vote in the referendum that forced Westminster to go this far, and it will only be the power of your vote in the general election that will force them to go further still. If you want the vow delivered in full, the only way to secure it is to vote SNP in May. It is that simple. You know, I am very regularly just now asked if I think there will be another independence referendum.
Yeah!
that is simple and it's the same as his. Yes, I do. And it will happen when the Scottish people decide that the time is right. You know, every time one of our political opponents demands that I rule out a referendum, imagine the arrogance of any politician presuming that they can rule out a democratic choice of the people. But every time I hear one of our opponents demand such a thing, I think two things. Firstly, they're only so desperate to avoid another referendum because they know that next time they will lose and yes will win. And secondly, they are missing a rather fundamental point. Whether and when there is another referendum is not just down to what we do. It will also depend on what they do. They'll never ever persuade us that independence is not best for Scotland, because it is. But if they want to stop public demand for another referendum growing, there are some pretty obvious things they need to do. They need to deliver in full that promise of more powers for our Parliament. No ifs, no buts, no wriggling off the hook, real powers on the economy, on tax, on welfare. They need to stop cutting our budget and imposing policies that drive our children into poverty. They need to make sure that they don't take us out of Europe against our will as they dance desperately to the UKIP tune. And hear me when I say this, they need to think again, very seriously, about using us as a dumping ground for a new generation of their nuclear weapons. Message to you today is this: look forwards, never backwards. As we move into this new exciting chapter in our country's story, we have the wind in our sails. The ball is at our feet. We didn't win the referendum, and that is a deep disappointment, but we did move this country forward, closer to independence than we have ever been in any of our lifetimes. Even our opponents now accept that Scotland is a sovereign nation. We hold the future in our own hands. We have the ability to transform this country's circumstances. In just a few months' time, we can send a strengthened team of MPs to the Westminster Parliament, possibly to a Westminster Parliament where there is no overall majority. A team who will put Scotland first and ensure that we cannot be ignored. I want the same passion, enthusiasm, confidence and optimism that you all showed in the Yes campaign to be put to work now in winning support in the general election, because that is how we will ensure that Scotland's voice is heard and that the votes of Scottish MPs are not trampled over by a Westminster majority. That's how we will win new respect for our country and new supporters for our cause. We have the opportunity now to lead our country to a better future, not by seeking to impose our will or by berating those who disagree with us, but by respecting what people want now and working with them to achieve it, and by persuading, through the strength of our arguments and through our actions as a strong, competent, progressive and visionary government, that in time we must go further still, that we should become independent. So let us go forward with confidence, with optimism and full of excitement about the future. You know, in an age when cynicism about politics tends to be the predominant sentiment, we are a party bucking all trends. We are a party growing, a party connecting with people, a party with the vision, the ideas, the energy and the commitment to provide the leadership that this country needs. One of my favourite ever quotes attributed to Alistair Gray is this one: work as if you live in the early days of a better nation. Well, these are good days for our country. The fact is, we are already a better nation because of the referendum. But we can be even better still. So let us Scotland's Party, all 93,000 of us, get on with the job of making this country the best it can be. Thank you very much.
If you see a person with a microphone, just stick up your hand. And what we'll probably do is groups of three. The First Minister will answer them in groups of three. So if you'd like to maybe stand up if you feel in the mood, if you can't be bothered, keep on sitting, but tell us your name and where you come from, and give us your question. So, gentlemen.
Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea.